What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwall here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. Today, we got the Venezuelan vixen in the house, the fourth. The champ is in the building. That's just what we got to say. Julianna Peña. How are you doing today, ma'am? And what's going on today?
I am excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Better that I got the true underdog in the house, and this is the Underdog podcast, and I want to jump into arguably the biggest upset in UFC history, and that was obviously the bantamweight title versus Amanda Nunes. You shocked the world by defeating Amanda Nunes. What was your mindset leading up to the fight, and did you believe you'd always get the win?
Absolutely. My mindset was that I can get it done. And, going into that fight, I knew that the whole world was against me, but that's kind of how it's always been for my entire career. And so I'm kind of thrive and live in that. And I love ruining people's day. So it was not a place that was foreign to me. I've been there before. I'll be there again. And it's a place where I thrive and I do my best work. When the pressure is on, that's when you can, see the most chaos from me.
Would you say that you've been an underdog throughout your fighting career?
I think so. Yeah.
Has that helped motivate you into becoming a better fighter?
Definitely. I think that when people count me out or think that I'm not going to get it done, I think that that's when, you see me get the best finishes.
Yeah. And you've obviously faced some of the toughest women in the UFC. Who would you say was your hardest fight and why?
I think my hardest fight was Nico Montano. And why? Because it was my first fight back since having a baby. I took the fight on like 2.5 weeks notice. And I don't recall feeling another woman being quite as physically strong as she was in the clinch. But then again, I also don't know if that's just because I hadn't locked up with anyone in over 2 years since having a baby. So she just really stuck out, or she always sticks out as just, one of those competitors that I remember feeling very physically strong.
And obviously, you've had, I don't want to say having a baby was a setback. Obviously, it's a blessing, but you have had setbacks in terms of injuries and stuff like that. Was there ever a moment where you're like, hey, I might have to hang up the gloves, or has it always been these setbacks make me into a better fighter?
No, there's been so many instances in my life where I was supposed to hang it up. I was walking down the sidewalk one day and I got ran over by a car, and, I messed my neck up. I messed my back up. I broke my nose. I shattered my nose. And they were like, you're done, and so then, tearing 4 out of 5 ligaments in my knee, they said, you're done, even having a baby via C-section, they said, you're done, so there's been so many times where, I've gotten my arm broken and they said you're done, or, there's always these, adversities that I've had to overcome. And even so many that I have never publicly spoke about, that people have absolutely no idea about, where they just get so upset at me for taking the time off. But really on the other side, they're not seeing these daily battles that I'm having to endure. So it's never one of these things where I'm counting myself out. It's just one of these things where I always believe that no matter what, it's just going to make me stronger at the end of the day.
100%. Now, the physical part is there, but many fighters say the real battle is mental. And Frankie Edgar was on the podcast and really drove that home. How do you mentally prepare for, obviously, fights? And has that changed over the years?
It has changed over the years. I am one of these fighters where my coaches have to kind of hold me back. They have to like keep me on the chain because I'm just ready to go, 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 go. It's never enough. I always want more, 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 more. But as I've gotten older and been doing this in my career for a lot of years, I noticed that you can't get as many practices in as you would like. You're not recovering the same, and you're not a spring chicken anymore. So it's almost one of these things, whereas before it was working so hard and white knuckling everything, and now it's kind of like work smarter, not harder. And to answer your first question, absolutely, mental toughness is the thing that has gotten me to as far as I've gotten, and it's what's going to get me to, that point that I'm, going to get to. It's never enough for me. I always want more, 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 and I have such high expectations for myself. With that being said, if you don't have it upstairs, then you've already answered the question, which is you're not going to make it that far in this sport. Mental toughness is something that you can't teach. It's something that you just have to have. And if you have that grit and that determination and that mental toughness to make it through anything, which I know that I have, then, going into the fight is pretty easy.
And talk about wanting more and more. Obviously, you are the champion. What else is there for you after the champion? Is it just defending it, or is it going to another weight class?
It's defending it, and it's defending it again and again as many times as my body allows. For me, I think that defending it and keeping my belt is the biggest task at hand for me right now, and that is my main and only focus.
Yeah. And obviously, what is your, going into the MMA side? You've been into MMA for so long. It started in high school for you, right? You took kickboxing and stuff?
Actually, no, I was graduated, and I threw my first punch at 19 years old, after high school. Yeah. So I had never done any wrestling or anything like that. No boxing, no martial art ever until 19 is when I threw my first punch.
What is your take on, the evolution of women's MMA? And, how do you see the divisions changing in the next few years?
Oh, the evolution is beautiful. Anytime that you can get more women joining the sport and getting more eyes on the sport and growing the sport of mixed martial arts for women is always a good thing. And I just see it now every single day. It used to be this rare thing where it was like there was one woman fighter, or maybe two women fighters that I knew of. And now it's like there's girls that are in wrestling and dominating wrestling at such a young age. There's girls that are taking jujitsu at such young ages. The evolution that has happened with these women that are taking up the sport, or these young girls that are taking up this sport at such a young age, is incredibly inspiring and motivating. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because like I said, anytime that you can grow the sport and get more eyes on the sport, it's better for everyone. I think that, what is the saying? High tide raises all ships.
Yep.
And I think that anytime that you can get girls more interested in a combat sport and learning how to defend themselves more importantly is always a good thing.
And has it ever hit you that you are a role model for so many, young women, and people are watching you? Has that set in yet, that you are, you are you, and you are such an inspiration to so many people?
No, no, to answer your question, I think that sometimes people want to make it into a bigger thing than what it is. Like somebody would be like, oh, they're looking at you. And I'm like, they are absolutely not looking at me. They have no idea. Like, no, they recognize you. Like, no, I swear to God, they don't recognize me. Like, and then I'll find out that the person will be like, can I get your picture and autograph? I'm like, oh, dang, you were right. They did recognize me. Like, I am almost in this imposter syndrome type of thing where I don't feel like it's a big deal. And I personally don't care, and I feel like most people don't care. But then you get these, instances where people will ask me to come talk to their women's wrestling team, and when I get in there, these little girls have stars in their eyes and they're just so excited to hear from me. And it's like so weird, because I don't look at myself like that as some sort of inspiration, but other people do look at me like that. And so it's always a humbling and nice feeling when you get that kind of reaction from little girls especially.
Yeah. And what have you learned about yourself from being the champion? What have you learned about yourself as a human being?
I thought that becoming the champion was going to feel like some heavens were going to open up and God was going to knight me And I was just going to be this changed person where I wake up and I'm just in a new body and going to have this out of body experience. Nothing like that happened, nothing like that. No magic happened, no heavens opened up. And it was just like, you just go on like a regular day. It's almost like your birthday. It's like, it's supposed to be this like a magnificent thing, but it's just another day. So for me, yes, of course, the title champion is as excellent. It's great. I love the fact that I have been working for 20 years to achieve this goal of mine that I have set out to do since I was 19 years old. So it's a nice pat on the back. But for me, it's just, again, it's just never enough. I want more, and I want to defend, and I want to fight, and I want to be 60 years old fighting until they pull me out of there by the scruff of my neck. I love fighting so much, and it has truly changed my life. I think that fighting has changed my life, but not becoming the champion as much. I don't think it's changed my life. I think that giving birth to my daughter was more of a eye-opening experience than becoming the champion.
Now, obviously, you are the champion and you are an amazing mother. How do you balance, both of those tasks? Obviously, they're both difficult tasks in their own right. How do you balance, your personal life versus your professional life?
It's very difficult. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm a single mother, and I have to, get everything that I have to get done in a timely fashion, because then I have to go pick her up from school, and it's an hour drive there and an hour drive back. And then I'm driving an hour to strength and conditioning, and I'm driving all over the place to make, all of these training sessions possible. So for me, it's very difficult, especially since I live in Chicago and all of my family is in Washington State.
Wow.
So it's literally just me alone by myself trying to make all this magic happen, and it's very difficult. But one thing that I know, and one thing that I can say for all mothers, is that we just find a way. We don't know how we're going to do it. We don't know when we're going to do it. We don't know what's going to happen. We just know that if we got to get it done, we're going to get it done somehow. And that's kind of what makes moms superheroes in a way, is that they're just going to find a way to make it work. And I have found a way to make it work with the people that I have in my life to help me out. And the outside help that I get from my family that I have made here in the Chicagoland area. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do it. It is true that they say it takes a village, because it really does.
And you are truly a superhero. You are like Wonder Woman. And now you talk about strength and conditioning. What does a typical training day look like for you when you're in a fight camp versus when you're not?
So a typical training day for me starts at 8:30. I go to boxing, and then I go straight into MMA practice. And then if I don't have my daughter, I'll go straight to strength and conditioning from there, or I'll come home and I'll wait a few hours, and then I'll go to jujitsu. Now, if I have my daughter, I got to go pick her up, and then I got to figure out what she's doing, because she'll do jujitsu sometimes as well. And then it's my turn to do jujitsu. And the night times change between jujitsu or strength and conditioning, or jujitsu and back to MMA practice. So I'm always doing those four, rotating between those four gyms every single day except Sunday.
And now the thing that I love about you is you've shown insane toughness inside the cage. Absolutely insane toughness. What has been the most painful injury or moment that you had to push through in a fight?
Definitely, probably, well, push through. I mean, there's times where I've been stopped, and then there was times where I didn't get stopped and I just kept coming. Probably that fight against Amanda Nunes, number two. I got split across the head, and that's actually the first time I've ever seen my own blood before. I've never seen myself bleed in a fight where I, could literally like pick it up off my face and like look at it. And I remember I was on my back, and I just had like pools of blood in my eyes, and I couldn't see anything. And I just remember like pulling out this blood in my eyes so that I could like see. And then in the fourth round, I had her dead to rights in an arm bar, and I thought that I was going to get the arm bar, and I thought that the fight was going to get finished. And she's just so like like a greased pig, just slipped out of it, and I didn't get the armbar, and it was so close, and then I had to, stand back up and fight for another round after that when I literally was completely blind. So that was definitely probably the biggest injury that I had to sustain, and then continue to keep pushing through the fight.
And then what was the biggest lesson you learned from that rematch with Amanda Nunes?
The biggest lesson is you better make sure that you're prepared, whether they come out southpaw, orthodox, standing on their head, exorcist, turning their head backwards. I don't care if they're standing on their feet or standing on their legs. You better be ready for all stances and all positions.
Yeah. And you talked about how much of a crazy match it was. Does that ever, sink in that you are in these, almost not gladiator matches? Does that ever sink into you that you are literally fighting someone and everyone is watching? Does that thought ever cross your mind?
Not while I'm fighting.
Yeah.
No, I could care less. But oh, sorry, I don't know what that was.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I think that the impact later on is pretty neat. I remember a friend of mine was over in, I think, Thailand or Bali or over there in one of those Indonesian countries, and he was just at the bar and having a beer, and then he looks up and I'm fighting on the TV, and he posted it on his story and was like, "Hey, I know her." And I was thinking, that's hilarious that it's not just some backyard fight in a barn, which is where I got my start. It's global and it reaches on a global span, and I think that that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, we talked earlier about how you've inspired so many women in the sport. Who were the women that inspired you coming up?
Definitely the Gina Carano's, the Misha Tates, the Chris Cyborgs. They were definitely girls that I knew of or that I had heard of or got the opportunity to meet, and girls that I was looking up to as a young up and coming fighter. It's funny though, because it was those three fighters, and you got the Julie Kedseys and the Shayna Baszlers, and then there's the next generation, which was me. So I feel like the Misha Tates and the Gina Carano's were my inspiration as far as being feminine and girly and still being able to get in the octagon and kick ass. And then you got your Chris Cyborgs, which is just straight machine coming at you 110% and just being an absolute killer. So those are definitely some of the women that I looked up to coming up in the sport.
And if you weren't fighting, what would you be doing today outside the cage? Have you ever thought about that?
I would probably still be a server at Spike's Phillies and More in Spokane, Washington. Just kidding. No, I don't know. I think about that often and think about what I'm going to do after fighting. And, I think that the beautiful thing about mixed martial arts is that it has opened up so many different doors and opportunities for me that I will be able to tap into when my fighting career is over. I was commentating there for a little bit. I remember back in Washington, I was helping with matchmaking and I was refereeing fights. There's been times where I've judged fights before. There's been times where I've been coaching fighters and being in their corner and, people fighting over me to be a part of their team and be a part of their corner. So as long as it involves MMA in some capacity, I'll be happy, and I'm sure that it will.
Yeah. What would your biggest tip or of advice be for someone who's looking to make it into the MMA, the UFC, like you once were?
Make sure that you have a solid team, and that you're a part of a solid team. But more than anything, you have to be able to find a coach that cares about you. In a gym with top level elite fighters, it's very hard to get noticed when you're in a gym where there's 100 people coming through the door every single day. You got to stand out somehow. You got to be able to make this person care about you and want to invest in you and pour time into you. If you don't have that person that believes in you, that is checking on you, that is making sure that you're, where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, or, doing a good job cornering you and being there for you on a daily basis, it can get pretty tough. It's a hard road. I think when these fighters start managing themselves and start trying to, call the shots in their own career and taking fights that they shouldn't take, it can get pretty dangerous, because then you're on a 4-fight skid and the UFC is not going to be, looking at you as some sort of phenom with a crappy record.
Yeah, and a big pathway for you was obviously the Ultimate Fighter, and you were the first woman to win the Ultimate Fighter. How did that experience shape your career?
Oh, it made my career. If I wouldn't have been the first woman to win the Ultimate Fighter, I would just be another one of these girls in the mix that no one really talks about or knows or cares about. Winning the Ultimate Fighter absolutely changed my life for the better, and it's something that no one will ever be able to take away. Like the Forrest Griffins, like the Diego Sanchez's, I'm the first woman to win the show. I'm the first woman to win the show, come back, coach the show, and then win the show again. So I think that for me, the Ultimate Fighter is always going to be, the cornerstone of how my career foundation kind of was laid.
Yeah. And earlier I asked, what would your biggest tip be for someone looking to get into the UFC? Obviously, you have a daughter. Would you ever let your daughter go into the UFC?
It depends. I want my daughter to be happy, and
Mhm.
I don't know what her happiness is going to look like, 15, 20 years from now. If she is passionate and dedicated and, has the desire to compete like that, I'll absolutely support her if that's what sets her soul on fire like it does mine. But I'm not going to push for her to go down that avenue. Absolutely not. The one thing that she has no choice in, however, is mixed martial arts and learning mixed martial arts. She's in jujitsu now. Her dad owns a jujitsu gym and she trains multiple times a week. And that's something that is just standard. She has to learn how to defend herself. And I don't know where she's going to take that in the future. I don't know if she's going to want to translate that into fighting one day, but it's definitely not something that I would ever push on her. But learning how to defend herself is a non-negotiable. She has to learn how to defend herself, and that's with jujitsu.
Yes. And really, the final question for you is: do you see the UFC going in the right way? Obviously, each year it's great; it's getting bigger and bigger. Do you see the direction of the UFC going in the right way?
100%. Absolutely. Yes, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. And I know that Dana's saying that he's competing with the NFL and the NBA, and he's not competing with these other, JV MMA promotions. And I think that he couldn't be more dead on. I know that on a Saturday night or, during the week, I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting until Saturday comes so that I can watch the fights during the weekend. And for me, it has, been a joy to see how much it has evolved and how popular that it's becoming, and it's only getting bigger and bigger. So they're absolutely on the right track. They're always going to be on the right track, and they're always going to be, in my opinion, right up there with those big NFL and NBA teams. You get to these NFL teams and they know who I am. They've seen my fights. I'm taking pictures with Tom Brady and he's like, Juliana, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a big fan. So when you get people like that of that caliber that are saying that they're watching you, you know that you're doing something right. So the UFC is definitely killing it.
And
And
you
they're,
actually did take a picture with Tom Brady?
oh yeah, I'm sandwiched between him and Justin Timberlake in one of these photos that I have. Yeah.
Wow. Now, the final question for you is: what has been your biggest underdog moment in your career? Obviously, I could think of a main one, but what would that other one be where everything was stacked against you and you kind of rose, shone, and showed a lot of people wrong?
I would have to say winning the Ultimate Fighter. I was months. I remember reading a journal months before I fought Shayna Baszler. I had went to her fight in I think it was Anaheim. It was one of these Strike Force fights, and she had a box of T-shirts that she was selling, and I bought her shirt for like $30. I got a picture with her. I got her autograph, and then a few months later, they're putting her and I face to face, and you're having to fight this girl that you were literally just getting a picture and an autograph from. So, they had me as, an underdog in that moment, and no one thought that I was going to win. I don't think anyone on my team believed in me. I don't think that anybody in her team believed in me, and they were very, very vocal about that.
Wow.
Um, Even when I fought Sarah Moras, excuse
Yeah.
me, that was another underdog moment where, you know, months prior, I had got my arm snapped in Spokane, Washington, right after I got ran over, actually. And I had taken my first loss against Sarah Morass. And so in the rematch, it was like she had, you know, been telling everybody, I smashed this girl and, you know, I broke her arm, but she didn't tap and she wouldn't tap. And she kept trying to fight me with one arm. And, you know, I'm going to smash her again and I'm going to give her a couple extra elbows. And, you know, again, I went into that fight knowing that I was going to win and do everything that I could do to win, but nobody believed in me. And my own team didn't believe in me. And of course, the other side didn't believe in me. So those two fights really stick out to me as far as being able to face adversity and be the underdog and get your hand raised. I sometimes think of myself as a Rudy, because I'm not going away. I'm not going away. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit. You're literally going to have to kill me in order to get me to stop.
Wow, that was powerful. And I mean, just like Rudy, you will conquer and you will advance. Now, before we go, the floor is yours. Are you working on anything? You know, what's the social media? What's that all like?
Yeah, so I'm just in the gym, staying ready every day, just getting ready for my title defense. I can't say when, but obviously we can all guess who.
Yep.
And I am just making sure that I'm putting my mat time in, and that's my main and only concern is being a mother to my daughter and making sure that I'm getting my mat time in.
Yep. And best of luck in that upcoming fight for you guys. Don't forget to follow Julianna on Instagram and like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Until next time, two underdogs out.